Oh, hello, Mark. It's so good to see you today.
Grace, wonderful seeing you too. Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, happy Valentine's Day to you too. And this is it's a great opportunity today, it being Valentine's Day, for me to ask you just a couple of things about what you see about love and how we can keep that feeling of love all year round. It's interesting to me that at Christmas we can fall into it sometimes. Maybe we get so stressed and busy we don't, but at Christmas and at Valentine's Day we're a little bit more loved up, Mark. And I
Yeah,
I know that you were one of the earliest students with Sydney Banks, and you had an insight around keeping this loving feeling going. Would you share a little bit about that?
yeah. I love talking to this and having this. You and I talking together about this topic of keeping this loving feeling the forever, really, but for the rest of the year beyond a celebratory day like Valentine's Day, where we're kind of open to sharing it more. Um, I think really what I realized in my meeting with Sydney Banks around our true nature, our true essence, is that it really is love. The energy that we are really all connected to in life is really what we would call love. And it doesn't go anywhere. If it's our essence, and, really what we are really a part of, then it wouldn't go anywhere. Um, but through my career in helping couples who think they have lost this love, what we realize is we just get busy with our usual ways of thinking, our stressful thinking, or our judgmental thinking, or having opinions about our partner. And it takes us away from our natural feeling of love. Today, Valentine's Day, really, if you looked at it, most people give themselves an excuse to let go of, their usual thinking. And once they do, they can get into the feeling that will emerge once we all quiet down our usual ways of thinking about another person. And what it brings to mind probably is us beginning to see once again the beautiful parts of our partner, or the beautiful parts of a family member. So that was the realization, Grace, that we are love. And so then I thought, it came to me, well, if we're love, then it can't be lost. What gets in the way? And so I began to realize it's just our usual thoughts about another person we're in a relationship with that really begin to give us a feeling like we've lost love.
Yeah, I've really seen that too, Mark, in my life. It's the busy mindedness that we can get into, just taking us away from that lovely feeling of love. And it occurred to me recently, even though my partner died and he's not physically present, it occurred to me recently, oh wow, I'm in the feeling of love, even though I'm no longer with my partner.
Mhm.
And that was such a beautiful thing for me to experience, to see that another person didn't need to be present or giving me something or protecting me from something in order for me to feel love. So yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
if you're hearing that, but it sure hit me that this feeling of love, it can just bubble up anytime our mind quietens down.
Well, that's a beautiful uh, realization to share today, because you see, when when I realized what Sydney Banks was pointing to, it wasn't love because of something. It was just this pure feeling we all can bask in, that really allows us to get into the space of, oh, I don't know, happiness, well-being, whatever you'd like to call it. But it isn't predicated on there being someone in your life. It is truly yours because that is what you are. So that really helped too. Now it's yours to give then. You see, when you drop into this feeling of love, or when it emerges and you're in that consciousness of this love, you're more likely to, be generous. You're more likely to serve people. You're more likely to, want to share that with another person. But it's not something that needs another person or anything else in life for you to have it. It's just given to you as you come into life, and it's yours to enjoy. So that's what he meant by it's pure love. And I'm glad you brought that point. The other piece that he also started to share with us is that the wisdom we need to live our lives in the direction of our purpose, of a positivity, um, of of wisdom is contained within that feeling. So when you drop into the consciousness of this pure love, you also get guidance. You also have a chance to use a wisdom that, again, we're all born with, to see how to handle the life circumstances in front of you in a way that allows you to really feel positive and resolved about it.
Mhm.
So, so that's the other magnificent realization I found about this pure energy we are, that is love.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was so caught up in busy-mindedness, not understanding how the mind really works, I remember in my relationship with Francesco, I didn't feel feelings of love sometimes, and I thought that meant I wasn't in love, I should leave. I had no idea uh, that it simply meant I was getting so lost in my own psychology and so busy with life's, demands. And, as we worked together and as I worked with others in looking in this direction, I was so grateful, Mark, that I really began to understand how the mind works. And I fell out of
Mhm.
taking everything personal in my relationship.
Mhm.
I fell into a much more graceful experience. It stopped making sense to me to keep leaving the relationship. And so that meant that the last 5 years of Francesco's life and our relationship together were the best. We had this incredible new depth of well-being together, not because he was looking in this direction, but simply because um, I had really, I had a, really shifted from listening to insecure thoughts and evaluating the relationship and falling out of a feeling of love to coming back into that feeling. So this is why I feel hopeful for couples that actually their love can get deeper and deeper rather than fizzle out.
Oh, that's so true. All that you said, it's the same learning that took place for me. And once I realized, and that everybody can really realize that when it looks like the relationship should end or is over, that they could take a look at the quality of their thinking. It may have everything to do with creating that idea, like you just shared. The other piece is, as we can recognize habits of thinking that we've had our whole lives about being in relationships, having opinions about people, making assumptions about who they are, putting them in boxes, and so forth. All of those habits of thought get in the way of truly seeing the humanness of that other person. And I've seen that as my marriage to my wife has grown with my understanding. You see, with my seeing that all of those thoughts get in the way of truly being in the essence of love. And when you're in that, you see more of your partner. So I have seen just what you said. Our relationship has deepened more and more in this feeling of love, and you could evolve even more because it's an endless experience. But what really struck me and taught me I was on the right track was I started to see more of who my wife really was, this loving being, rather than who I thought she was. And that made the world of difference. I would always, when I would, talk to myself about, well, this is who you're married to, it would have limits. There would be limits on her that I imposed from my ideas. Once I recognize those and can let them go, dropped into the feeling of love, I saw that she was way more than I could even imagine. And more of that loving human being that I live with comes up.
Yeah.
So that's the other beautiful thing is now you don't have to stop that thinking. You just have to believe that's what's in the way of the loving feelings that you want to have with the people in your life. And as you can just believe that all it is the way you've been thinking, you'll begin to recognize them and help yourself quiet them down and not really engage them as much.
So I was listening to Sydney Banks, one of his early recordings lately called The Quiet Mind. And in it, he said, love is a thought. So I just want to ask you a little bit there, Mark, how do we discern between being in love with someone, the feeling we fall into, and the fact that love is a thought? What do you see there?
Well, again, when anyone listens to Sydney Banks, he's even practical, what sound like practical expressions come from a deep place. And what I'm thinking is, when you fall into what we're calling the essence of ourselves, which is love, the only way that you're there is you have to have a thought. You have to have some kind of thought that of what you're in, what feelings you're having. Otherwise, you wouldn't know it. So I think that's what he meant, and that our true essence, to know that we're just in this beautiful space, to even see that we're in a beautiful space, that's a thought. That's a thought about what we're trying to explain to ourselves about this feeling we're in. So calling it love is a way to try to help ourselves see what we really are. You can't really describe a formless energy that we all are, that we can drop into, that really allows us to live outside of our personal world, like you mentioned, into a more impersonal world where we just have this beautiful feeling, let's say, of peace or love, or we're not concerned with ourselves. But to know where we're at, you must have thought.
Yeah.
You must see it with thought. That's how we're built. The only way we recognize anything is through the power we have to think. So unless we think it, we won't really know where we are.
Yeah.
So that's what he meant. he meant. You know, you have the essence, and to know the essence, you have to have thought.
Mhm.
That's why we're talking together. That's why we're
Mhm.
helping, I hope helping people find some guidance around where to look.
Sure. You know, I probably shared this with you before, Mark, but I think up until my partner actually died, I had intellectualized what love was. And it was in his death, like that I was overcome with a feeling of love that carried me for a number of weeks afterwards. It
Yeah.
was it was such a spiritual experience, but it was such a lesson to me about, you know, how life can support us with this feeling of love, even amidst the most traumatic or difficult challenges. So for me, love has become less of a thing that I need to understand and more of an experience that and a feeling that I deeply, deeply trust. There's really nothing to fear in death. We go back to that pure essence of love. That's what
Mhm.
that's just was what I felt so deeply for so many weeks afterwards.
Well, that's truly the experience of having a moment of your life where you are encompassed or surrounded by this essence that just emerged, and it can carry you, and and you see clearly steps to take, but it's less personal. You're just knowing you're in the right place,
Mhm.
and it takes care of you.
Yeah.
You know, you in a way, your essence takes care of you.
Mhm.
Um, and that's available um, for us all the time. And the more we see that truth and look for that and embrace it when we have it, the more we live in that. And it just it just guides us through life in a beautiful place where we can handle uh, all kinds of circumstances that come our way. A small little example is that, you know, when couples would come to see me, as you could know, by the time they come to see a psychologist, they're in a lot of turmoil. And our first meeting would be one spouse would be telling me what's wrong with their partner, and I want you better fix this, and the other spouse is there, you know, telling me what's wrong with the other person. Through the meeting, they show something like tenderness, like maybe they'll hold hands, and then they'll go right back to it. And I stop them and point out that when they held hands, they were in the feeling they were looking for. It may have just been a nanosecond. They usually didn't even recognize it, but that's what I mean. It can be just a little uh, small gesture like that, but it's coming from this deep essence of love. And when people start to get pointed to appreciate that, then they know how to live. You know, the couples I saw didn't know how to live with one another. And it's an innocent, you know, thing that we all grow up with. We don't know that our thinking innocently leads us astray from what we're actually looking for. And I've had, you know, prior to meeting with Sydney Banks, I had some wonderful moments with my wife, but I would always think I was right when I would have critical thoughts about her, you see? And it wasn't until I woke up around how my thinking that way was taking me away from the love and the clarity of seeing what really was there, that I started to be able to let it go.
Yeah. One of the things you really helped me with in our conversations together, Mark, was self-love. And it had nothing
Mhm.
to do with, you know, practices to show that I love myself. You really supported me with getting freedom of thought around constant self-evaluation.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about that also with the listeners, experiencing this self-love, this feeling of love for ourselves? Because I think for many of us, that's the hardest place to, we can almost forgive others, but when it comes to ourselves, we're just so harsh and judgmental.
Oh, yeah, Grace. There was another time with Sydney Banks that helped me see that much more clearly. We were gathered together at a time where here in the United States and North America, there was this big push for self-esteem in the educational system to help kids get self-esteem by teaching them practices of self-esteem. Just what you were saying, practices of self-love. And we were telling Sid about that. We said, how do we go about that? And he said, that's nonsense. You have self-esteem. You are self-esteem right now, were it not for your silly beliefs. Now, he didn't disparage our beliefs, but he wanted to see not to hold thoughts about ourselves so seriously. And then he said, the only problem you're having is you're thinking too much about yourself. And that woke me up. I mean, I didn't know how to do that, but I knew that was true. I was thinking too much about myself. And, just as I was thinking too much about my wife, it's the same understanding, just trying to get it more for ourselves, where we get more serious about us and those habits of self-evaluation. So I started to notice how often I would say, how am I doing? How am I doing? Why did I do that? I should have. I ought to. And I started to realize that's getting in my way of, again, this essence, which you could call self-love or self-esteem. It's the same essence with different words to just make more sense for people. So no one has to do any practices because it's already there. When you do practices, you fool yourself into believing it's not there. Just like those couples that came to see me that says, we don't have love anymore. It's there were it not for our thinking. And in this case, that thinking about ourselves. If we're thinking too much about ourselves, and if you could go through your day and not consider yourself, you'll have a wonderful day.
Mm-hmm.
And you will get new thinking that kind of takes you into a more, I don't know, accepting, loving place. You'll just see what's in front of you in a different way than continuing to be careful about what you say or how you are.
Yeah.
So it's the same understanding, but it comes from a whole different waking up to how much we think about ourselves and
Yeah.
evaluate ourselves in so many different ways. And it keeps us from what we have: self-love,
Mhm.
self-esteem. We have it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, I really knew that I had freedom of thought around self when my experience of self-consciousness dropped. I remember I used to never do
Mhm.
video interviews, and everything had to be perfect when it came to my branding and my business. And I still like things to look nice, but I hadn't realized how much I was holding back from sharing with the world because of all those self-evaluating thoughts. So this feeling of love that we get to point our clients to can have an impact on how they show up in the world, in their business, in their lives, and of course in their relationships. So
Yeah.
yeah. Mark, I want to share with the audience just about the fact that you're coming to London. And so So I really would love for the audience to know about your upcoming seminar in London, Mark, which I intend to be at, by the way,
Oh,
Sunday,
great.
the 14th of May. Tell us a bit about what you're doing in London.
Well, this is wonderful. I'm so thrilled to finally come back to the UK after COVID. I made at least one trip a year since maybe 2016, and I just loved it. And I've been invited to do a seminar on Sunday, 14th of May, from around 9:30, kind of gathering until 3 with a small lunch break. But I'm really going to focus on this topic in more depth. It's called something around love, forgiveness, and understanding. And I want to also share the quality of forgiveness that's available to all people for themselves and in their lives with other people. So I'm really thrilled that I was invited to offer this. And I hope people can join us, hopefully in person, but there's also going to be what do they call it? It's
An online,
Yeah,
virtual?
it's going to be a virtual. It's going to be set up for virtual as well. So invitations will be coming, and if people are interested, you can just email me at Dr. Mark Howard, Dr. the abbreviation of Dr. Mark Howard at Comcast.net, and I'll send you the link as soon as we have the announcement.
Yeah, so see if the date, especially those of you that are in the UK and can just easily get to London, Sunday the 14th of May. I'll be flying in from Italy as well to be with Mark, and I hope to certainly be at the event the next day. Because this is incredible that you're coming all this way to our side of the world to share. And pointing people back to this feeling of love. We have the best job in the world, Mark, pointing people back to the essence of who they are. And if you're interested in that too, from my side, I have an upcoming workshop on February 23rd, and it's Be Less Busy. So I'm going to be supporting those of you that would like to drop into that feeling of love and away from that busy-mindedness that is keeping us stuck in a world of do, and more. So the information for that, alongside the information for Mark's email address, will be under this video and in the email you receive. So thank you very much, Mark, for this lovely exploration on Valentine's Day. And I look forward to seeing you in London.
Oh, thank you, Grace. I always love our conversations, and I really was touched by what you had to share today as well.
Yeah, thank you. Speak to you soon.